Today, in Being with Jesus, our lunchtime edition, okay, again I'll concentrate on the Matthew version. Is this one of the miracles of Jesus that is recorded in all four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But I'll just concentrate on the Matthew recording like such, okay, easier for us. So if your Bible, just turn to Matthew chapter 14. Matthew 14, we'll cover from verse 13 to verse 21. Matthew 14:13 says, when Jesus heard what had happened, okay, referring to what happened to John the Baptist, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Okay, so Jesus himself needed also a time to reflect, a time by himself, a time to consider, okay, the whole ministry and all that. I don't see him running away, but he also needed private time and private space. So he went by boat to a solitary place together with the disciples. So he went by boat. So they are still around the Sea of Galilee area, to some place that's quiet. Okay, where exactly this is, we are not very sure. But obviously they went hoping to have some rest time for reflection, time for it to think through, okay, what's just happened. Now I'm quite sure that here from this account that Jesus was affected by what happened to John the Baptist. Okay, he was affected, but I think he just needed time to reflect on the importance of it. I think that's important. Okay, so even as he went by boat to a solitary place, it goes on to record, hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. By the time Jesus landed, he saw a large crowd. He had compassion on them and healed their sick. So even though they went by boat, Sea of Galilee is not that big. 14 miles by 7 miles, so possibly they were not that far away and the crowd could still see where they were. So the crowds were so persistent, they followed him on foot from the towns. They went to try to, in a way, be where Jesus was. And Jesus, being in the way a teacher, someone who loved the people, when he saw the crowd, he didn't chase them away. I'm quite sure he's tired. I'm quite sure the disciples were tired. Okay, but he had compassion on them and continued the ministry of healing, the ministry of teaching. So this is, we know by now that he's very popular and people recognize him. Okay, and wherever he went, people tend to crowd around him, even going on foot. And this going on foot must be quite a distance. Okay, a boat can go straight on the lake, but the land you can go up and down, valleys and small hills that they have. Okay, so you have a big crowd of people at the place where they were going to spend some rest time. So obviously he didn't have rest time lah. He didn't have rest time. He saw the people, he had compassion, so he continued teaching, continued ministering, continued evening. Whether this was morning or late afternoon, we are not sure. But by the time I come to verse 15, Matthew 14:15, when it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, this is a deserted place, okay, and the hour is now late. Send the crowds away so that they may go into the villages and buy food for themselves. Because they're so isolated, there's no major town nearby. How late in the afternoon, we are not sure. Some people say 3, some people say 4. Okay, we are not sure. But sunset was approaching. And the disciples, I'm quite sure, were tired. They themselves may be hungry. Okay, and so they're just planning, telling Jesus, they are so far out of nowhere. Can we send these people away so they can go back and get some dinner, get some food? Okay, because we are in the middle of nowhere. I think that's important to understand. Okay, and what Jesus in the way told them in verse 16, must surprise them a lot. But just said to them, they do not need to go away. You give them something to eat. And now that is very strange, okay, because there's so small group of disciples with Jesus. I'm quite sure they did have a lot of food with them. Okay, they're just going for a small solitude rest. Okay, and there are so many people, and we know there are thousands of people all around them. And here just says they do not need to go away. You give them something to eat. Okay, this must surprise even his followers, his disciples, how to give. And we know from the other account, okay, that they will say, where got money to buy food for all these people? There are so many of them. Okay, and verse 17 records, they replied, we have nothing here but 5 loaves and 2 fish. And he said, bring them here to me. You know from John's account, okay, that this small boy had this lunch that he brought for himself, and then it was brought to the attention of Andrew. Okay, Andrew brought it to Jesus. So all they have is 5 loaves and 2 fish. This is not 5 big loaves, 5 small loaves, most probably the common rye or barley buns that they have. And 2 fish is most probably 2 salted fish. Okay, that's how they preserve fish at that time. 2 salted fish. Okay, that's the boy's lunch that somehow he didn't eat, and he just kept it. Okay, so what is that compared to so many people? Disciples must be thinking. Okay, I'm glad that the boy was willing to bring his so-called his only lunch to the attention of the disciples, to Andrew especially. Okay, enough for one small boy, but not enough for thousands of people. And verse 19 goes on and says, and Jesus directed people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to the disciples, and someone gave them to the people. So he directed people to sit in groups of 10s, 50s, 100s, you don't know how many. Okay, and Jesus gave thanks for the food, the 5 loaves and 2 fish, and began to break the loaves into smaller pieces. Okay, and the disciples took what was broken and began to serve the people as they were sitting down on the grass. Okay, and this in a way became a banquet table, a banquet place for God's miracle. So they made sure that everybody had enough, everybody had enough to eat, and this will help people to understand that with Jesus nothing is impossible. So Jesus multiplied the 5 loaves and 2 fish, enough to feed. At the end of it, we know that at least 5,000 men. You include the women and children, maybe 10,000 or more people there, depending. Okay, in Jewish culture, in public, normally the men and the women don't eat together; they eat separately, kind of thing. Okay, there's a cultural aspect, but this is not listed here. Okay, in verse 20 it says, "They all ate and were satisfied." And disciples pick up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. Must be quite sizable for them to pick it up, lah. Okay, it's not bits and crumbs on the ground, but quite sizable pieces. The people could not finish, and there are 12 baskets full of these broken pieces that they pick up. Okay, compared to the 5 loaves and 2 fish that they began with, this is truly a miracle. And verse 21 says, the number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Okay, so it is important to know that a great miracle has just occurred. A great miracle. From 5 loaves and 2 fishes, multiplied enough food to feed 5 or 10,000 people, and with 12 baskets left behind. Okay, whether the 12 is significant, the number 12 basketfuls, we are not sure. Maybe each of the disciples took one bag, I don't know. Maybe the 12 baskets were given all to the young boy who sacrificed his lunch, and he took back and surprised the family with 12 basketful of food. We don't know. But truly, this is a big miracle that's recorded in all 4 Gospels. One of the few miracles recorded in all 4 Gospels. That's how important the Gospel writers were in recording this. So there are a lot of lessons that we can learn even in this miracle event. Okay, Matthew 14, 13, 21. I think firstly is Jesus is also fully man, besides being fully God. He also needed rest. He also need to rest his physical being. That's why he went to find a place to rest. But at the same time, he's also compassionate. When there's a need, he goes out the way to meet the need of the people. They needed to be taught, they needed to be healed, they needed to be fed. And he did that. He did not just send them away empty-handed. Important lesson for us to learn as well. Things that are so impossible for men. You look at the crowd, so many, how to feed all of them. I think the lesson we need to learn from this is bring them to Jesus. Bring what we have to Jesus and allow God to do the miracle of multiplication. Does it mean he'll do it every time? No, it does not. But in God's time and perfect will, he still can do. You read current days missionary stories. This has been done, multiplication of food. I read accounts in Africa and all that, how in times of famine, food was multiplied for the people. I think that's important. So bring them to Jesus. Bring what little you have to Jesus, and he can do that miracle that only God can do. And ultimately, all of them were fed enough to eat, and they sent them away, so that even if they walk a long distance back, they will not faint or fall. I think that's important. So there are many lessons for us to learn from this miracle, and just trust that in our own life, we will keep this in mind, that we believe in a God who is still able and willing to do the miraculous, if we are willing to come to him in total surrenderedness and faith and just trust him.